Parents should curb their tongues for fear of discouraging youngsters from being open. They're basically trying to say, you know, it's okay to have lesbian and homosexual relationships. We'll also pass that later. But while parents are warned against giving moral guidance, they are encouraged to get their children to use condoms and other contraception from the age of 13. And the doctors can pass this out without knowledge of the parents. Up to November 2008, 2,000 sex offenders, including rapists and pedophiles, escaped with a caution. 28% of sex offenders last year escaped with a slap on the wrist. Is it any wonder that violence is escalating? Now we have hundreds of children who are missing from care homes. The council takes the children and put them in the care homes and they don't know what's happened to them. And recently some judge acknowledged that he was sending young children to care homes that he shouldn't be, taking the children away from their parents. A survey of 170 local authorities in England and Wales who care for 28,000 children found between 376 and 389 young people were missing, and the council did not know where they were. The true figure is probably higher because 6 authorities said they did not keep records of missing children. They were non-persons, you see. The eternal God happens to be keeping a record of them, and we are going to have to give an account for what we have done to the children. And in the UK, 3 children a week, that's what the death toll from abuse in the United Kingdom is. 3 children die a week. You know, George Bush said, "We do not torture." That's what he said. But we do, don't we? We torture adults and we torture children. They can be found in the prison camps. You see, to stop child abuse, we need to know where it originates. You know, when we know where it originates, we can pray about it. Sadly, much of it starts in the home. Child abuse destroys children and steals their very lives away. In many ways, it kills them. It distresses them. It affects them throughout their entire life in any relationship they might have to be involved with. Many subjects are taught in schools that don't prepare children for life. The real world comes as a shock to them, especially now that we are doing everything politically correctly. You know, women often find themselves with the unenviable task of bringing up one or several children on their own, in spite of the wonderful and totally unselfish job that this, and thankless, that the single parent makes. A vital person is missing, and that hole cannot be plugged. You see, God designed children to be brought up with a father and mother. Don't worry what the psychologists tell you. My father died when I was around 4 years of age. I know what I'm speaking about, to be in a single-parent home, but it wasn't an abusive single-parent home. My mother did an absolutely sterling job of raising 3 children. My sister, my brother, and myself. She was a very special person. She worked very diligently and very hard in order to achieve the enormous task that confronted her. And she did. You know, men and women need to realize that children are for eternity. They really are. And there is nothing that can be done to alter this fact. So you see, men have this habit of having a child here, then they move on to another, Little Miss Pretty, and they'll have a child there. And, you know, or they just move out and leave a woman with 2 or 3 children, and she has to fend for these children. And he would see them once for a couple of hours, every week or a couple of weeks, and that's his contribution to their welfare. Doesn't work like that. They are accountable. You have a child, you are accountable. You better believe it. Whether you're a man or woman makes no difference. So if you're somebody who has given up on your responsibility of your children, particularly your young children, you better take it up. You know, when one parent has to do the work of 2, that person becomes physically and emotionally drained. You know, of course, death can cause you to have a one-parent situation, but that's an entirely different matter. But we cannot disregard what the eternal God says. If we do it to our peril. You know, so many times on the radio I hear women speaking about the difficulties that they're experiencing. Whatever it is, the woman is always appearing to voice their concerns in whatever area of the family is being discussed. Very rarely do I hear them mention men. Very, very rarely. And I'm asking myself, where is the father? This brings us to the contentious subject of same-sex unions. Same-sex people fostering children or having intro-fertilized pregnancies so that 2 men can bring up a child or 2 women can bring up a child. In a word, this is wrong. And as this is being promoted under political correctness by the government, I have to tell you, there is a price to pay. Do you remember in the beginning I said, I used the scripture I read, mentioned, woe to the world. So you see, we're not actually having just little isolated incidents that don't matter. These isolated incidents do matter. And when governments make rules that affect their populations, it does matter. That's what it's telling us there. So the government is complicit in this wrongdoing. I know this will upset many people, but that's not my problem. If anyone has a problem, they just need to go to the eternal God with it. Don't come to me. You see, in Matthew 18:7, I said, woe unto the world because of offenses, but for it must needs be that offenses come, but woe to the man by whom the offense cometh. Now in Luke 16:23, we're talking about Lazarus and the rich man. The rich man and Lazarus both died. Lazarus was outside his gate begging for the crumbs off the table. That's how desperate Lazarus was. And this is real. This isn't any parable. But when they died, Lazarus was thrown in the rubbish heap to be burnt with the rest of the refuse. But the rich man could afford a nice tomb.